Andrew Callahan joins us now. Talk about that, the Patriots coaching search, and so much more. Andrew, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, fellas. Are we saying happy wild card weekend? Are you guys in on the super wild card weekend? What name are we giving this?
So didn't the league stop using super? I think I saw this
they
year.
did.
I think it's
good.
just wild card weekend now. Yeah, which I wondered, implying super implies there's some other wild card. I was just being kind of, get off my lawn complaining about the 6 games and the Monday night games.
It's the super duper ultra mega wild card weekend.
I miss my good old wild card weekend, Andrew. I miss classic way. What was it called when Coke changed the recipe, then went back?
New Coke,
and then Coke Classic,
Crystal Coke, or what? That was Pepsi, I think.
Yeah,
I think Dolloff is getting into something extra with the Crystal Coke. But yeah, we're talking soda here. Maybe Coke One, Coke Classic, something like that. But isn't it funny, fellas, how whether it's a football team or the league at large, they love to trial balloon these things in the public, and largely how the public reacts is kind of dictates how they do business.
It really is. That's a good point, and that kind of gets to where I wanted to start. Again, you and Doug Kai did a great job, as you guys do every year, with this kind of look behind the curtain piece at the end of the Patriots season. I'm just curious for you going through it this year, right? You've done this the last few years with Bill Belichick, but this season was so unique. Just without, I know you can't get into too much and give away sources and things like that, but how different was it going through this project this year, given kind of the way this Patriots season went?
Yeah, it's a good question, Alex. And this is not, nice guy lip service. You guys both know Doug very well and how hard he works. That piece that we did, just like last year, is impossible without him. So a lot of the stuff that you heard in that clip coming back in here and that we'll discuss possibly, or even just read in the piece doesn't get done without Doug. And I want that known up front as much as I'm the guy talking to you right now on the radio. Secondarily, of course you hear things throughout the year and, people go, why don't you report it right away? Well, first of all, you got to confirm everything. And everything that we had in that piece was independently confirmed by a second person, a third person, sometimes a fourth person to make sure it is rock solid. And so as you gather that kind of info or the rumors, things that you're hearing, it was just strange this year, fellows, with a lot of just uncertainty. And there was some that I talked to in the building that said, honestly, because when I had asked, hey, was the last month a little bit more stressful? They felt like I've been dealing and living this way for the last 12 to 14 months. And, again, as you hear certain things like that, I never contemplated oh, yeah, of course, Bill last year struggling. He didn't know what the Crafts were going to do. And in that process, some folks also don't want to talk until the season is over. So I might have an inkling about what the answer might be, but they don't want to share anything in season that might be negative about the team. Once the season is over, they're like, I don't know my future here. And as we started to gather everything, confirm things that we had heard, it was just an uncertainty about Gerard's vision. And then by the end of the season, looking up in ownership, being like, is this really what we're doing?
Andrew, I want to ask you about the wide receiver room. They took up a chunk of your story, and I think, no single position group on the team with more dysfunction, in my opinion. And yes, they obviously need players there, but I think the problems, based on that story, go well beyond the players. I think the coaching and development was lacking there, and the room was out of control. I think everyone agrees that they need to go out and get some receivers, but how aggressive do you think they should be in terms of who's coaching the receivers, who's developing them? Because I think, something really needs to change as far as how they're building that position group and developing them.
Yeah, I say based on the results on the field, you could have read this story and not felt this way, and I think it would have been fair. Just a complete overhaul is due. And it's not like they have any albatross contracts there for the players. I do think it was a very immature room. It's hard to get a hold on guys in the draft that the Patriots selected and had some red flags for certain teams character-wise, and that showed up. Or are going to mouth off to the media. And it's one thing to criticize the play calling or want the ball more. That's kind of being a receiver. But when you don't have the resume or the standing in the league to say, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have to ask for the ball, and guys are still saying that, you're like, who do you think you are? So I just think, as Elliot Wolf said on the record to Fox Sports, he didn't expect the development to go like this. He thought it would be much better. Maybe the talent was what he thought it was. And then you have the players who obviously thought a little bit too much of themselves. So I don't see you look in that room unless Jalen Polk becomes a player most of us pre-draft expected him to be, just a solid number 2 receiver, that there are any foundational pieces. So including the coaching, as you mentioned, the lack of development, you could see a total overhaul in the next, 12 to 18 months.
Again, we're talking to Andrew Callahan from the Boston Herald. Leading that overhaul will be the next head coach. It certainly seems like things are trending towards Mike Vrabel. What's the latest you've heard? And really the timeline. Robert Kraft said in that press conference on Monday he wanted to move quick. 24 hours, 48 hours. How much longer do you think until this thing is resolved?
Yeah, guys, I would be surprised if it's longer than 48 hours. And I'll say this, it's not based in any intel. But when you ask some people around the league, and this isn't like, I surveyed all 31 other franchises, just some folks that are kind of in the know, they thought it might have been done today or yesterday or the day before. And just because this has been the expectation from the outside looking in for a while. Now, when you go, oh, is it not done in 24 hours or 48 hours? Is it a problem? Maybe. I don't know. Or because we know how, I want to say, sensitive this team is to optics, a la the Aaron Glenn interview 48 hours after they request the other coordinator for the Lions, maybe they're just waiting and they're doing the league a solid. Say, hey, you can break your news. Just don't do it during mega super duper wild card weekend. Like, just wait a little bit. So I'm not going to read into the timing, but I expect this to be done soon. Reportedly, they've entered into the contract negotiations according to the NFL Network, which to me, fellas, like that tells you basically everything you need to know.
Andrew, I'm curious where you stand on the philosophy of the head coach, who they hire. It sounds like it's going to be Vrabel, but you're seeing a lot of discourse of that it's a mistake simply because he's defensive-minded, and they need to hire an offensive-minded head coach. Just where do you stand on that? Because I think Sean McVay's success has sort of created this kind of mind virus where you have to hire this guy simply because he's an offensive-minded head coach and he's been in the same room as Sean McVay. I just think teams sort of go too far with that, and I think head coach is more than just being offensive-minded, but I'm curious where you stand on that.
Mind virus. Matt, with your permission, I will be stealing that sometime in the near future in a column for the Boston Herald. I like that term.
Yes, CC Matt Dolloff, yep.
Please credit 98.5 The Sports Hub. You'll see it at the bottom. No, I think it's a fair point, but I don't think it's so much from like, oh, this guy did it, we all have to do it the same way. What you do if you hire a successful offensive head coach is you do not risk losing that person to another job because they're already your head coach. So if you have someone like McVay who can clearly develop quarterbacks, can clearly run an offense, which is the most attractive skill set in coaching in the National Football League, you just get to keep that guy. What I would say is when it comes to Vrabel, though, like the reason you hire Mike Vrabel now as the Patriots is not because of the player that he was. It's because of the coach he's become. Last year in Cleveland, for example, he's in the offensive line room. He's in the tight ends room. He's working in the front office. In Tennessee, he won the third highest percentage of games of any head coach when he was an underdog. It's a team that punched above its weight without a great roster, certainly without a great quarterback. He's been a head coach before, or he just had a winning record. Like, to me, I understand the longer we wait, people fill time either on the hub or in the paper like me and kind of outthink themselves. He's the best candidate. He's the best candidate for this job where the Patriots need culture and discipline and experience. And he also hires offensive coordinators. So, yeah, ideally you would love Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel to share a brain, to have the same mind viruses. But ultimately, Vrabel's a better candidate, in my opinion, and it's not to do with the defensive versus offensive stuff. It's just who he is and who he's always been.
Before we let you go, Andrew, the last point, and I opened the show talking about this, the head coaching hire is important. But to me, as if not more important, is who's going to be making sure that coach has the talent to succeed here and who gets final say. Robert Kraft kind of left that one open-ended when we talked to him on Monday. Do you think there's a chance Vrabel could get that power and essentially be like Belichick, the de facto GM? Do you think it could go back to Elliott Wolf, or do you think we'll see somebody else in here running player personnel?
Yeah, I would leave two options on the table. One, actually, let's make it three. Number one is, Elliott Wolf stays atop the front office. I don't have percentages for this. I'm just going to tell you, don't completely take that off the table for now. Number two, Mike Vrabel brings in his own guy. We heard a year ago, Ryan Cowden, a Titans executive, who's going to go to him with him to L.A. if he took the Chargers job, and Elliott Wolf takes a demotion. Number three, Ryan Cowden, or pick your executive from the outside, comes in with Mike Vrabel, and Elliott Wolf is gone. And I would argue, as much as everyone's been disappointed by Wolf's last year, basically in year one of a rebuild, which is designed to reset the roster, the front office is an example of where this franchise needs to add and not subtract. They need more resources in there. They need more experienced minds. It can't be as it was Bill and Caserio, and then Dave Ziegler and Matt Groh and Bill, and then it was Matt Groh and Belichick, and now it's just Elliott Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith and Pat Stewart. Like, you need more minds in there, period. I think Elliott Wolf is an experienced, solid executive, and that's from GMs I talked to around the league last year to do a profile of him and people he worked with. So those are the three options I would see. I don't think Mike Vrabel gets total power, but Elliott Wolf's future could go in any number of directions.
He is Andrew Callahan. He covers the Patriots for the Boston Herald. Check out him and Doug Kyde's story on kind of the peek behind the curtain of the Gerard era. You guys did a fantastic job on that, and look forward to hearing more from you guys throughout this offseason. Thanks for joining us.
You got it. Hopefully see you guys at a press conference this week.
Hopefully.